Okay, Clay, name that tune. We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Our in-studio guest is our own district attorney, Lisa Green. Lisa, before we get away from this subject, you were talking about, off camera, you were talking about Denim Day.
I was. Denim Day is part of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The Alliance Against Family Violence and Sexual Assault will be celebrating it. I think the actual day is next Thursday, whatever day. I think that might be the 28th. We will celebrate in our office, where the employees who don't appear in court are allowed to wear jeans to work that day. But the history behind Denim Day is pretty interesting.
You told us that story, but if you don't mind repeating that story.
No, I don't mind at all. It's 15 to 20 years ago in Italy, a woman was raped, and the case was prosecuted under the Italian system of justice, and the person who she said raped her was convicted of the crime. And it went up on appeal to an Italian judge. The judge overturned the conviction, and he said the woman, with his logic being the woman could not have been raped because she was wearing a pair of very tight jeans. And he said the perpetrator, the suspect, would not have been able to take those tight jeans off without help from the victim, so therefore she could not have been raped, and he overturned the victim's on the suspect's conviction on those grounds.
Oh,
so.
Insane.
Nothing about a knife to her throat or a gun in her face or anything like that.
Or even any threats of violence.
Sure.
Resistance isn't. I don't know if it was required under Italian law. I doubt it, but it certainly isn't required in the United States. A victim need not resist ever any kind of sexual assault.
You know, it's interesting in doing a little research for this on this subject. I noticed an article that Lois Henry, who has a show now on 1230, had mentioned about I guess Sean Allen Robbins. Are you familiar with that?
That name doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, I think this occurred just before you took over as district attorney, but he was flagged as high control for violence, and he ended up assaulting a few women, and he was listed, I guess, in court as the crimes were listed as non-violent, so the domestic violence was considered non-violent. I mean, how do you consider that non-violent?
Well, in the law, that could be just a technical meaning. There are certain felony offenses that are described in the penal code as violent felonies, but if it was a domestic violence conviction,
right,
even for a felony, that is not one that is listed that is considered a, quote, violent, unquote, felony. So
right,
perhaps that's what she was referring to.
Okay. Clay, before I hand it to you, I just wanted to give this number because the Alliance Against Family Violence and Sexual Assault has a 24-hour hotline. You know, this isn't anything anybody should have to contend with. So, you know, God forbid if you're in that situation, let me give you a 24-hour hotline. It's 327-7713, and I think that's a number we should give at least one more time before the end of the show. Clay?
327-7713.
Yes.
In addition to sexual attacks, isn't there other types of domestic violence? And what are some of those issues and some of those things?
Well, domestic violence is a whole another type of crime that occurs regularly here in Kern County, unfortunately. We actually, in the district attorney's office, have 3 full-time prosecutors dedicated to prosecuting domestic violence cases. 2 handle cases here in Greater Bakersfield, and 1 travels to the outlying areas of the county and handles those cases. They're difficult to prosecute also. Oftentimes the victims do not wish to prosecute. It's their husband, the father of their kids, their boyfriend. There's a lot of issues involved in the cycle of violence. But I'm one of the projects that I'm just beginning to work on, and there seems to be some support for it, is the concept of a family justice center, bringing a family justice center to Kern County. It started, the model is actually in San Diego, and I believe they opened their doors in 2002 or 2003, and now they're springing up all across the country. And there's several in California, and the one that I know that most recently opened is in Stanislaus County. So I'm very interested in the idea. It co-locates service for domestic violence victims, gives them a great support system that may not completely be in place now. So we're exploring that, And there's a lot, from what I can tell, and the people I've talked to, there's quite a bit of an interest in that. So I'm going to move forward with that at least in the next 4 years.
So if someone is a victim of domestic violence and doesn't care to file a claim or prosecute, is there anything that you can do as a district attorney? Well,
that happens all the time. What happens is they report it because they need the police to come and arrest the person, and the law is that if the police do arrest them, they don't cite them. When they determine who the aggressor is, whether it's a male or a female, they arrest that person and they go to jail. So once the report is made and we make a decision to file the case, if it's a felony case, it is our it's our belief that we have to prosecute those cases. If the victim can't protect herself or her kids, then sometimes we have to step in and do that for her. And that's what we try to do. If there's sufficient evidence to go forward, we go forward with what you're referring to, our recanting victims who are saying, no, he didn't hit me, I actually fell, where they change their story. It's fairly common, and our prosecutors are trained to deal with those kinds of recantations.
Sure, I imagine it would be. Our in-studio guest is the District Attorney for the County of Kern, Lisa Green.
Lisa, you keep referencing her. But like in Marty's case, wouldn't it be male not reporting domestic violence?
That happens. We've seen cases where men are victimized. There's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, and we file those cases too. It's not as common, obviously. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I do believe that men even reporting is highly underreported in the domestic violence arena. But we do prosecute those cases as well.
Mm-hmm. When you're looking at domestic violence, there's really, you think of physical, but there's also emotional and verbal. And
there are.
Mm-hmm.
And, emotional abuse, verbal abuse may not be a crime in and of itself. It depends if it's mixed in there with the physical abuse. But certainly it's abuse, and it plays a part in the whole dynamics of the family relationship. Sure. It really does. The thing of really that is of concern in domestic violence case, or one of the things I should say, is that the statistics are just frightening. How many times children who are in the home where domestic violence is happening actually witness the events. Statistically, how many children who then become abusers themselves when they're adults. And that's why domestic violence, in the family dynamics, is a huge, huge problem that gets a lot of attention now from law enforcement and from the courts.
Well, looking at a handout by the Alliance, they said that 1 out of 4 women in this country suffer some form of violence.
That's right. That is the statistic.
Mm-hmm. And they also made the same comment that you did, that it's amazing how many kids follow their parents' example when they become adults, and they just continually repeat the process from generation to generation.
I've spoken on that subject about a year and a half ago for the Alliance, and when I went and researched the figures, it was just so alarming to look at those numbers, and I have to say that I think that law enforcement in Kern County has a good approach to domestic violence, and they're genuinely concerned, and I think one of the reasons for that is the fact that the children are in the household, and a family justice center were we to have a location like that, I think would be helpful for the children, because there could be a counselor there who could deal with the trauma of that immediately rather than weeks, months down the line.
Sure.
Or begin the counseling process.
Lisa, over the years you've been in the courtroom and had a lot of high-profile cases that you've worked on. Are you still in the courtroom at all?
I am. I actually am prosecuting one case at the time. I said when I was campaigning that I felt supervisors in my office needed to have one case at a time, and I have one also. It's a child abuse case. The children are alive, but...
Well, it's amazing not only when you talk about child abuse, as we've been talking about, but the number of kids that are killed. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, it is. And those figures actually in Kern County are extremely high, unfortunately, in terms of the deaths to children. I think they're as high or higher than any other counties statewide. I haven't looked at the numbers lately, but I know that they're right up there. And that's very unfortunate.
As far as children killed by
parents or caregivers or in that kind of situation. I'm not talking about traffic accidents or that type of thing.
Right.
Basically homicides.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna take a break in just a second, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about your specific office, the district attorney's office, some of the things that went on with the county supervisors and the budget and things like that.
Okay.
I want to spend a little time on that in the next segment.
Yeah, we're going to shift gears. Before we do, let me give that phone number one more time, because there's no reason any person should put up with that kind of abuse. So help is available. The Alliance 24-hour hotline number in Kern County is 327-7713. That's 327-7713. We'll be back in a minute on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.